This video is brought to you by Mr. Black Cold Brew Coffee Liqueur. Today we're going to make a semi-original tiki drink, the Muerto Bali Hai. For this drink, you're going to need a tiki mug, or a tall glass, a jigger, a cocktail shaker, juicers, a Lewis bag and an ice mallet, and a fancy cocktail pig. This drink uses reposado tequila, non-smoky mezcal, coffee liqueur, orgeat, pineapple juice, lime juice, and a bunch of sage and a marigold for garnish. This is a remix of a real crowd pleaser called Mr. Bali Hai. It's not one that I would call famous, but it is known in tiki circles. It's made with the odd couple pairing of coffee and pineapple. On paper, it doesn't look like it would work, but when you taste it, you'll become a believer. The origin of this one is traced back to a couple of books that were turned into movies. The first one is Mutiny on the Bounty, the 1932 fictional account of a true story of a mutiny on an English ship in the South Seas.
You mutinous dog.
The mutineers, many of whom were shanghaied into service, kissed England goodbye, planned to live the rest of their days in Tahiti. The mutiny was led by Fletcher Christian, who in the movie was played by an uncharacteristically clean-shaven Clark Gable. A large part of the movie was filmed on Catalina Island in the summer of 1934, and being less than 30 miles from Los Angeles, it was just a little closer than Tahiti. The production built a little lounge for the cast and crew, a place to knock off after the martini shot and have a martini. They dubbed it Christian's Hut, after Gable's character in the movie. The shack was designed to look like something on Pitcairn Island, the Polynesian island south of Tahiti where the real Fletcher Christian spent the rest of his days, and where a number of his ancestors still live today. During the shoot, Clark Gable and his sometime body double Art Lachelle would drink highballs in the hut most every night. And after the production wrapped, instead of striking the set, Lachelle told production he'd take it off their hands. Save them some money. They agreed, and he went to work making it a permanent fixture on the island. Lachelle hired former Don the Beachcomber bartender Ray Bowen to man the stick and whip up some tropical drinks. And Ray Bowen, of course, would go on years later to open the famous Tiki Tea. When Mutiny on the Bounty came out, it was a huge success. It was the highest grossing movie of the year, and it won Best Picture at the Oscars. So that certainly didn't hurt the popularity of the bar. Lachelle doubled down on it and franchised Christian's Hut. Throughout the 1940s and 50s, they opened several locations, including one in Newport Beach, which can be seen in the 1950 film, The Breaking Point. One of the last locations to open was in San Diego on Shelter Island. Around 1953, they built a huge, mid-century streamlined tiki shack at the end of the island, where it would have a panoramic view of the bay. However, the franchise was cursed. The locations kept burning down. Then the San Diego location went bankrupt, and Lachelle threw in the towel. He sold the business, and the new owners took over and rebranded it. But it wasn't long before it went into bankruptcy again, which was the second time within the first year of opening. So the ownership changed hands again, and the bar was rebranded again.
What a pity. What a pity.
This is where the second book comes in. In 1947, James Michener published Tales of the South Pacific, which was a collection of short stories. And in 1949, that was adapted into the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, simply called South Pacific. The musical was set in the Pacific Theater during World War II, and the hit song from the show was Bali Hai. In the song, a group of servicemen stationed on an island are told about another island that they can see, but they can't reach. An island called Bali Hai.
Bali Hai. What's that mean?
Bali Hai mean, I am your special island.
Because the island is forbidden, in a place that you can only imagine, it takes on a talismanic quality in your imagination. It gets built up into a paradise where you can forget all the troubles of the world and luxuriate in all the pleasures your heart desires. Bali Hai is a microcosm for the escapism sought by all tiki fans. It's that magic trick that allows you to escape the ugliness and rigors of life and indulge in the fantasy of another world, one that doesn't actually exist, but after a few drinks, it starts to seem like it could.
But it's a dream, Fletcher. This island isn't real. Not for you and me.
Bali Hai was a hit song long before the movie came out. It was covered endlessly, and immediately became a standard. All sorts of things adopted the name. So in 1954, when it came time to rename the tropical paradise-themed restaurant on an island in San Diego Bay, Perhaps it shouldn't be a surprise that they named it Bali Hai. The restaurant reopened in the fall of 1954 and has remained open ever since, so maybe it was the name that did the trick.
That darn Bali Hai. You can get everything over there.
Sometime in the 1960s, they added a drink to their menu called Mr. Bali Hai. It was served in a signature mug, one that would become famous in tiki collector circles. In the 1980s, a tiki collector named Beach Bum Berry paid a visit to Bali Hai, and he gorged himself on Mr. Bali Hai as an attempt to snag as many mugs as he could. Berry, as with a lot of tiki drinks, was able to uncover the recipe for this one. The recipe he found was dated from the 1970s, and because it was the 70s, it was unsurprisingly made with sweet and sour mix. So Berry retooled the recipe to be made with fresh juices, and he printed that in his book Intoxica. I made a video on Mr. Bali Hai back in 2017. The day the video was released, I immediately remixed it to be made with mezcals. My first trial was to make it with lemon juice like the rum version, but it didn't quite work, so I switched it over to lime. I replaced Mr. with Senor, and made a huge batch for 4th of July. It was a huge hit. Making tiki drinks with mezcal, like the Oaxacan Dead and the Tia Mia, is a fun subgenre of tiki drinks. A lot of bartenders and home enthusiasts play around with the spirit category, which makes it feel like a modern trend, but it's really not. Tijuana was once a popular destination for thirsty Californians, particularly during Prohibition. But the tourist bar culture continued to thrive long after the 21st Amendment. And in the height of the mid-century tiki craze, they certainly got in on the act. Joints like the Waikiki Club, the Tropics, and the Aloha Cafe served up tropical drinks as well as tropical atmosphere, but often with a Mexican twist. Their menus, of course, would carry a bunch of standards, but also exotic drinks made with tequila. And in the 1960s, if you wanted to change a pace from Bali Hai and the American-style tiki bar, you could drive half an hour south and try a tiki bar the Mexican way. This drink was originally born out of convenience, as I had a lot of mezcal stocked up for the weekend, but I like to think of it as carrying out a tradition of Tijuana tiki. After I made it the first time, I've since tweaked and refined the recipe in a couple different ways. I bumped up the measurement of coffee liqueur, swapped out the simple syrup for orgeat, and garnished it with sage. This version ends up steering the base in a different but exciting direction. The mezcals, Aztec Orgeat, and sage put a spotlight on the earthy flavors of the coffee. For the tequila, you'll want to go with a reposado. If all you have is blanco, you'll be able to get by, but ideally you want something with a little age and body to it. As for the mezcal, I like using a non-smoky mezcal. And you will too. Of course, you can make do with a smoky mezcal, but it ends up overpowering a lot of the other flavors. It really draws the acidity out of the pineapple juice and throws everything out of balance. Because believe it or not, this drink is actually pretty delicate. And speaking of pineapple juice, you definitely want to go with unsweetened juice. In terms of the orgeat, the homemade avocado pit orgeat is ideal. It's what I like to call Aztec Orgeat. But if you don't have any and are dying to make this one, regular almond orgeat will work. As for the coffee liqueur, I'm using Mr. Black, a deep, chocolatey Australian coffee liqueur. The Aussies are known for being fans of espresso. They're no strangers to big, bold, biting flavors. And on that front, Mr. Black doesn't disappoint. On the nose, it's super dank. It has an aroma of rich, dark cocoa, deep roasted coffee, and an unmistakable punch of booziness. On the palate, it's meatier and boozier than it seems. And in this drink, it's an exciting counterweight to the acid of the fruit juices, and the perfect complement to the agave-based spirits. As for the garnish, the marigold ties into the Dia de los Muertos theme, and brings a pop of color. But it's really just for show, so you could skip it if you can't find it. The sage, however, brings a lot to the table. Like mint and a lot of tiki drinks, it brings some much needed aromatics to the drink. Of course, feel free to use a lot less than I did. I like going overboard for the videos, but you can just go with a sprig or two as long as they have big leaves on them. You'll want to serve the drink in your favorite tiki mug, but one with an open top. So if you're using a Mr. Bali Hai mug, you're going to have to leave the top off, because you want to leave room for the garnish. In this case, I'm serving it in a Sugar Skull Tiki mug from San Diego-based artist David Loiseau. It's the perfect mix of playfulness and darkness to go with this drink. But if you don't have a tiki mug, just make it in a tall glass. In terms of the name of the drink, I wanted to acknowledge the drink's roots, but didn't want to stray too far. I called it Muerto Bali Hai, as a nod to Dia de los Muertos, but also as a kind of slant rhyme with Mr. Muerto Bali Hai, Mr. Bali Hai. Plus, the name change gives the drink a sense of danger. Dangerous sounding drinks are a staple of the tiki world. It's both a challenge and a warning. Perhaps a different Bali Hai awaits you with this one. Before I get started, I like to chop, extract, strain, and bottle my lime and pineapple juice. That way it's easier to pour when it comes time to measure. Next, whack the rim of your mug with a sage sprig to release some oils and help activate the earthy aroma. Then prep the rest of your garnish. Spear your marigold and lime wheel on your fancy toothpick. The lime wheel acts as a sort of lily pad to help anchor the marigold. That way your garnish will stay intact as you work your way down to the bottom of the drink. Next, beat up some ice. Add ice cubes to a Lewis bag and roll it up. If you don't have a Lewis bag, you can use a bar towel. Just fold it up so the ice can't escape. With the Lewis bag rolled, beat it up like you're trying to provoke a mutiny. Then fill your mug with crushed ice and set it aside. Next, measure 1.5 ounces of reposado tequila and pineapple juice. Add those to the shaker. Measure 1 ounce of lime juice, mezcal, and coffee liqueur. Add those to the shaker. And measure 1/2 ounce of orgeat. Add that to the shaker. Add a little crushed ice and whip it to integrate and agitate the ingredients. We'll let the crushed ice in the mug do most of the chilling and diluting. Then pour the contents of your shaker unstrained over the ice in your mug. Work in your sage, your marigold, and your straw. It's important to put the straw back in the forest of sage. That way you get a big earthy aroma on the nose when you go to take a sip. And there you have it. A taste of Tijuana Tiki. Muerto Bali Hai. Pacoli Maluna. Mr. Black is holding a cocktail competition from September 29th through October 12th. They're looking for you to submit an original cocktail, hopefully one more original than mine, that uses at least 1 ounce of Mr. Black in the recipe. Submit your drinks to coffeecocktail.com.au for a chance to win the ultimate bartender and barista prize pack. After you've submitted it, post it on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, and tag me in it. I'd love to see what you came up with. And you can buy Mr. Black directly through their website. Make sure to use the discount code DISTINGUISHED10 for 10% off your order. You can find out more about Mr. Black and follow their channel here. Check out some more videos on this channel and be sure to subscribe. For links, more info, and the printed recipe, check out the description below.